بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين. وقد نوينا تعلم وتعليم والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة نبيه والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير والسيرة والحام وكل ما نواه مشايخنا ابتغاء الله وثوابه وقربه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا يا كريم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing in the chapter of the Nawasib wal-Mudari', which are those huruf, or those words that their presence prior to the fi'l mudari' will cause the fi'l mudari' to be mansub. And that mansub, as we mentioned before, can show up in a few different ways, either by a fatha, which is visible on the end of the mudari', or by the noon and the af'al khamsa being dropped off. So the noon of dual and the noon of plural, except for the plural feminine. So we mentioned that there are three types of huruf, or of words that cause the mudari' to be mansub. One is a type where they make the mudari' mansub in and of themselves, not because of some other or external reason. So we finished that, and they are four. And they are so N, Len, Idan, and K. N, Len, K, Idan. The second type are those who make the mudari' mansub by means of a harf N, which is hidden in the word itself, right? Which is what we're doing now. And this is jawazan. It's not something that is a necessity, that it has to be, that the N has to be there. Rather, it is a possibility that the N is there. So he says, وَأَمَّا الْقِسْمُ الثَّانِي. As for this is on page 139 for those who are following on. As for the second type, وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَنْصِبُ الْفِعْلَ الْمُضَارِعَ. And that is the type which causes the fi'l mudari' to become mansub بِوَاسِطَةِ أَنْ مُضْمَرَةً بَعْدَهُ. Because of a harf N, because of the word N, which is hidden after it. Jawazan for harfan wahid. Jawazan meaning it's not necessary that it has to be like that. Harfun wahidun, so there's only one harf that fits in this category, which is وَهُوَ لَامُ التَّعْلِيل, is the lam of reason, right? The lam that shows the reason for something. Right? And there's a strong connection with this and the word K, which we've done already, right? And sometimes they're written together, li-K, right? So he says وَعَبَّرَ عَنْهَا الْمُؤَلِّفُ بِلَامِ كَيْ. And the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, has described lam ta'lil as lam kay, right? The lam of K. Why? لِإِشْتِرَاكِهِمَا فِي الدَّلَالَةِ عَلَى التَّعْلِيل. Because they both share in the meaning of reason, that they both give a reason. So the word K means so that. Right? So the lam also is the reason that, right? So also means so that. So because of their equal, they share in the same meaning, that he calls it lam K. There are many examples of this in the Quran. Allah, he says, وَمِثَالُهَا, and examples of it, قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. لِيَغْفِرَ, right? It's mansub because it's one of the huruf al-nasib. Yani لِأَنْ يَغْفِرَ. So it's as if the N is hidden after the lam. Meaning, li is for, and that. For that. Or so that. لِأَنْ يَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ. So that Allah will forgive you. So that Allah will forgive you مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ, that which has proceeded of your sin, وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ, and that which is later of your sin. So the past and the future. And this is an expression that the Arabs used to say for somebody who's sinless. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ is described as this. وَقَوْلُهُ جَلَّ شَأْنُهُ, and as well Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيُعَذِّبَ اللَّهُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ, so that Allah will punish the hypocrite men and women. لِيُعَذِّبَ, not يُعَذِّبُ. Right? لِيُعَذِّبَ meaning لِأَنْ يُعَذِّبَ. So N is already one of the four huruf that make the mudari' mansub in and of themselves. Right, so lam is one of the harf that makes the mudari' mansub because of the hidden N that's in it. Right? So li'an yu'adhiba. Sure.
So is the differentiating characteristic between the second category and third category, that with the lam at ta'lil, it's possible that the reason it gives nasab is because of the N. Whereas with the third category, the reason it gives nasab is definitely because there's taqdir on.
Exactly.
I get it.
Exactly. So he says, وَأَمَّا الْقِسْمُ الثَّالِثُ. Alright, so those are examples from the Quran of words, mudari', words that don't have anything connected to the end. So you're going to see the fatha, zahira, visible on the end. But Allah says, لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Right? لِتَعْلَمُوا was تَعْلَمُونَ. لِتَعْلَمُوا, the noon fell off. Right? So that's another way to tell that it's mansub. لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So he says, وَأَمَّا الْقِسْمُ الثَّالِثُ. As for the third type, and what is the third type? It is that type which causes the verb after it to be mansub because of a hidden N as well, but this time the N is necessary. It is not just merely possible. So he says that there, falling under this category, is 5 different huruf. 5 different huruf. Al-awwalu, lam al-juhud. It's the lam of negation, I guess you could say. So he says, وَضَابِطُهَا أَن تُسْبَقَ بِمَا كَانَ أَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ. And the rule regarding this lam is that it has to have either a negative version of kana before it. Right? So either it's past tense, ma kana, like the example coming, ma kana Allahu liyadhara al-mu'minina ala ma antum alayh. It is not befitting for Allah, or you can say that Allah would not leave the believers on the state that you are on. You can also say that it's not befitting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So that it comes before it is ma kana. It's kana with a negative, with a nafi before it. Either ma or la. Or lam yakun. Lam yakun is also maldi, is also nafi. Right? So you could say ma kana la yakunu Allahu liyu'adhiba. You could say. But these ones are all past tense so far. So he says, فَمِثَالُ الْأَوَّلِ, the example of the first one, meaning that it's preceded by مَا كَانَ, is قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَذَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It is not for Allah to leave the believers, right? To forsake the believers. Another place, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. Allah would not punish them while you're amongst them. Sallallahu alayhi Sayyidina Muhammad wa alayhi wa sallam. Right? مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ. It is not for Allah to punish them. So there's a few ways you can translate that. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. وَمِثَالُ الثَّانِي, right? The second example, meaning that it's preceded by لَمْ يَكُنْ. So the first one was مَا كَانَ. Second is لَمْ يَكُنْ. قَوْلُهُ جَلَّ ذِكْرُهُ. Allah's statement, لَمْ يَكُنِ اللَّهُ لِيَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ وَلَا لِيَهْدِيَهُمْ سَبِيلًا. You can translate this as, it is not for Allah that to forgive them, nor to guide them any path. Or you can say that Allah would not, right? Or it is not befitting for Allah to forgive them, or to guide them, nor to guide them any path. So.
What is the meaning of this lam? Does it emphasize the negation?
Yeah. It's because it's only used when negation is there. right? So ma kana or lam yakun. So you wouldn't say kana Allahu liyuthibahum. You wouldn't say that. Right? You would only use it in a negative sentence.
It's not, if the lam wasn't there in these examples, it would still be a negative sentence, right?
It wouldn't really make sense.
Oh, okay, so then a negative, and if the khabar of kana, of a negative kana, is a verb or fi'l mudari, there has to be a lam.
In order to give this meaning, yeah. But I can say ma kuntu akulu. I didn't used to eat. Right? It doesn't give the same meaning. Like ma kana, Shaykh Thani said, lam yakun li astaghfira wa lam yakun li asjuda li bashar khalaqtu min nar khalaqtu min salsal min hamil masnun. That it is not befitting for me. Right? So it has a whole different translation, to make sajda to a human who you've created from mud. Right? So it's a whole different type of meaning. If I said ma kuntu akulu, I didn't used to eat. I didn't eat. Right? But if I said ma kuntu li akula, right, it's not befitting to eat. It's not befitting for me to eat. There's a big difference. Sorry, so he says, وَمِثَالُ الثَّانِي, no, we did that. وَحَرْفُ الثَّانِي, so that's the first. lam al-juhud. So, and all of this going back to an, right? So, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِأَنْ يَذَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَمْ يَكُنِ اللَّهُ لِأَنْ يَغْفِرَ. The second, وَالْحَرْفُ الثَّانِي حَتَّى. The word حَتَّى, وَهُوَ يُفِيدُ الْغَايَةَ أَوْ التَّعْلِيلَ. And it gives the meaning of, it can give the same meaning, which is the reason, or it can give the meaning of the furthest extent of something. So he says, وَمَعْنَى الْغَايَةِ, in regards to it giving the meaning of the furthest extent of something, he says, أَنَّ مَا قَبْلَهَا يَنْقَضِي بِحُصُولِ مَا بَعْدَهَا, is that which is prior to hatta has ceased to be by the presence of that which is after hatta. So the example will make it clear. He says, نحو قوله تعالى, as Allah says, حتى يرجع إلينا موسى. Right? Prior to this, to give the full ayah, we'll make the definition more clear. He says, لن نبرح عليه عاكفين, that we will continue to worship this cattle, the golden calf. Right? This is the story of Musa alayhi salam. Until, right? So that's the ceasing of the first part. Musa returns to us. Right? So by the hatta, right? That which is before it terminates. Soon as that which is after is fulfilled. Right? So that's the furthest extent. So we will continue to worship this calf until the furthest extent would be until Musa comes back. And that will be the last. That will be the time when we stop worshiping the calf. So in regards to the furthest extent and meaning, he says that whatever is before hatta terminates by the presence of that which is after hatta. Right? So we will continue to worship the cattle. That worshipping of the cattle, the calf, will terminate once that which is after hatta is present, which is that Musa returns. Right, so the farthest extent that they will worship the calf is until Musa returns. And we use it in English anyway. I'm going to sit here until you come back. Right, so once you come back, that means my sitting here is over. I'm going to stand. Right, so we also use that in English. But with this harf, right, because there's an an hidden in there, it becomes yarji'a, not yarji'u, ilayna Musa. So hatta an yarji'a ilayna Musa. So that's in regards to the meaning of the furthest extent of something, ghaya. Wa ma'na ta'lil, and as for the meaning of reason, right, that it gives the reason of something, similar to what we were just doing with lam al-juhud and kay, right, lam and kay. He says, أَنَّ مَا قَبْلَهَا عِلَّةٌ لِحُصُولِ مَا بَعْدَهَا, that which is prior to hatta is the reason for the obtaining of that which is after hatta. نحو قولك لبعض إخوانك, like if you were to say to some of your friends, to one of your friends, ذاكر حتى تنجح, that revise until you succeed. Revise حتى تنجح, till حتى you succeed. So the revision is the reason why a person will obtain success. Right? حتى تنجح. And that kind of loses its flavor in English though. So revise, you could say, so that until you are successful. Okay? Revise until you are successful, I mean in the test. Right? It uses a lot of examples about preparing for tests. So that which is before hatta, which is the revision, is the reason for the obtaining of that which is after hatta, which is success in the test. Right? To pass the test. So this is number 1 and number 2 out of 5. So he combines the next 2, 3 and 4. He says, وَالْحَرْفَانِ الثَّالِثِ وَالْرَابِعُ. The next 2 letters are, the 3rd and the 4th, are fa as-sababiyya and waw al-ma'iyya. It's the fa which shows the reason of something, right? Which is similar to what we just mentioned about the lamb. But this is a fa this time. And waw al-ma'iyya, the waw of witness. And this is the waw that comes after the maf'ul ma'ahu. Maf'ul ma'ahu. Right? So jittu wa zaydan. I came and with Zayd. Right? So it has the meaning of ma'a. It's a waw that has the meaning of ma'a, with. Right? But there are conditions. So he says that these 2, fa al-sababiyya and waw al-ma'iyya, are حروف ناصبة بشرط أن يقع كل منهما في جواب نفي أو طلب. But the condition that each of these falls in the place of the response to a negative or the response to a request. Right? So what would be an example of response to a request? فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ يَذْكُرْكُمْ. Right? Remember Allah, He will remember you. So the second part, يَذْكُرْكُمْ, is mansub. Why? Because it's the reply to the command, to the talab, to that which was requested. So he says, أَمَّا النَّفْيُ, example for these 2 words being being the reply to a negative statement is لَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْهِمْ فَيَمُوتُوا, that they will not be given death, they will not be, you could say, judgment will not be passed upon them, thus they will die. He's talking about the people of Jahannam, right? لَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْهِمْ, that judgment of them, their time of life being finished, that judgment will not be passed upon them, فَيَمُوتُوا, thus causing them to die. Right? So thus causing them is the sabab, it's the reason. Right? In English you would say thus. Right? Thus means almost like so that. وَلَا يُخَفَّفُ عَنْهُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِهَا, nor will the punishment be relieved for them.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Do both of them have the meaning of ma, or just the waw?
No, the fa only. The waw only has the meaning of ma. Fa has the meaning of reason, the reason, right? Thus.
Okay.
Right, so they will not be, the judgment will not be passed on them. This is how the Arabs said that that death would become to them. That قُضِيَ عَلَيْهِ mean that he died. That judgment was passed upon him. Right? Meaning he died. So judgment will not be passed upon them. فَيُمُوتُوا, thus allowing them to die. Right? Because those who are in Jahannam would love to die. That's what they're seeking, as an ease from the punishment. You have a question?
Yes. What would the meaning be without the fa? It would still be.
It would be a contradictory meaning. A judgment will not be passed upon them, right? They will die. That's their 2 opposites. Judgment will be passed upon them, meaning that Allah will allow them to die. Thus they will die. Right? So you took out the thus part, right? And Allah says He's not going to allow them to die, and they're going to die. So
jawab shart in, or jawab when with fi'l mudari without any particle, it would be jazm
Yeah.
typically. So if you were to say la yaqda alayhim yamutu, so it's not yamutuna, it's yamutu. I always thought that the meaning of the jawab was like therefore or like thus. That's the way I understood it. But without if it's in jazm without a fa, because right now it's in nasab because of the fa. So if it's in jazm without a fa, does it have that thus?
Well, this is not nahi. It's not negative command, because that would be like that, right? لا تكذب فتدخل النار. Right? Don't lie, lest you fall in the fire, or lest you enter the fire. Right? What's an example? فكرهتموه. That's a good example, but it's in past tense stuff. لا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه. But that's past tense, so you won't see the. But this is not. The jawab of a nafi is different, right, than a nahi. A nahi would be majzoom. The jawab of a nahi
Yes.
would be majzoom.
But not enough.
Right, so this is a very different one. So judgment will not be passed upon them for yamutu, thus or allowing them to die, right? Thus causing them to die, right? You can say. Okay, sabab means the cause, right? Thus causing them to die. So that's in regards to the response to a nafi. So the fayamutu is the response of la yuqda alayhim. Wa amma talabu, in the second situation where these two words could be used, is that al-talab for thamaniyatu ashya. It's 8 things. So they didn't give any meaning, they didn't give any examples of waw ma'iyah. Right, so waw ma'iyah is used after maf'ul ma'ahu. Maf'ul ma'ahu is the object of something that is done with it. It is done with it. Maf'ul means it is done ma'ahu, with it. So jittu, I came, wa zaydan, right, with Zayd. I came with Zayd. That's how you translate it. But wa zaydan. So that's in regards to ism. So he'll mention here coming up the example for that. So he says, فَأَمَّا طَلَبُ فَثَلَانِيَةُ أَشْيَاء. As far as the response to a request, right? طلب al-amr is al-amru wa du'a'u. So all of these are considered talab. All of these things are considered requests. One is a command. One is a du'a, right? The request, the response to a du'a. One nahi, right? Which you're asking about just now. Wal istifham, a nahi is the negative command. Wal istifham, a question. So the response to a question may have this fa as well. Wal ard, which is a request, right? And these are all al ard. A lot of these are mentioned in the jumla insha'iyya. These are the types of jumla insha'iyya. Right? So amr, du'a, nahi, istifham, al ard, request. Right? Would you not come to my house so I can feed you? That's a request. Right? ألا تأتيني فأطعمك. Right? So that I can. Right? والتحضيض, which is encouragement. والتمني, which is hope, using the word later. No, sorry, لعل. والرجاء, which is using the word later. So those are the 8 things. Command, du'a, supplication, negative command, question, a request, encouragement, and then 2 types of hope. So one using la'alla, the other one using later. And the one that's using la'alla is usually used for something that is tangible, that is possible to obtain. So I can say la'alla al-imtihan sahlun, that perhaps the test is easy. It's possible. But later is used for things that are unattainable. So perhaps, or if only hope, if only youth would come back. If only I could be young again. right? Ya laytani kuntu shababan, right? Shaban, right? If only I could be young, right? Or Allah mentions in Surah An-Naba, Ya laytani kuntu turaba. If only I could be dirt. The kafir on the Day of Judgment will say, if only I could become dirt, which is not possible, right? So he says, وَأَمَّا الْأَمْرُ, as for the first one, the command, فَهُوَ الطَّلَبْ الصَّادِرُ مِنَ الْعَظِيمِ لِمَنْ هُوَ دُونَهُ. It is a request which comes forth, الصَّادِر مِنَ الْعَظِيمِ, from someone of higher status, لِمَنْ هُوَ دُونَهُ, to the person who is of lower status to him. Right? So if a child orders his father to do something, it's not considered amr in Arabic. Right? Even if he says, get me something, right? It's not considered an amr. Because a true amr is that which comes from up to down. Right? From an authority to the follower. So it's نحو قول الأستاذ لتلميذه ذاكر فتنجح أو وتنجح. Like the statement of a teacher to his students. So now we have a status, authority speaking to his pupil. Revise فتنجح. Right? That's causing you to be successful. Right? Sabab is the cause of something. That's causing you to be successful. Oh, وَتَنْجَحَ. Revise, and you will be successful. Okay? So that's the first one. And now he's using both examples. وَأَمَّا الدُّعَاءُ, the second one is supplication. فهو الطلب is also a request. So all of these are 8 types of request. الموجه من الصغير إلى العظيم. It is a request which comes forth from a person of lower status to the one of a higher status. So the child telling his father to do something would fall more under this category than it would under the category of command. Right? نحو اللهم اهدني فأعمل الخير أو وأعمل خيرا. Oh Allah, guide me so that I can do good, right? That's causing me to do good. Or وَأَعْمَلَ خَيْرًا, and I will do good. Right? So this is a command, yes. Ihdini is an amr, right? But because it's not coming from above to below, it's coming from below to one of higher status, it's called a dua. Right, so both of them, وَأَعْمَلَ الْخَيْرَ أو فَأَعْمَلَ الْخَيْرَ. They're both mansub. وَأَمَّا النَّهْيُ, as for a negative command, فَنَحُ لَا تَلْعَبْ فَيَضِيعَ أَمَلُكَ أو وَيَضِيعَ أَمَلُكَ. Don't play, lest your hopes are in vain. Lest you lose your hopes. Or you hope to be a doctor, but you're just playing around. Right? Wasting time. Right? So, لَا تَلْعَبْ, don't play, thus causing you, your hope, to be lost. Right? Oh, وَيَضِيعَ أَمُلُكَ. Oh, and your hope is lost. Any question? You look like you have a question.
I'm a little bit confused with the examples, the Ma'iyya. So, in these examples, does it mean, and with this action, like, so don't do this, because if you do with this action, is this result? Is that the understanding?
Kind of.
So it's not a
similar
cause.
in translation is very similar. Right? It's almost like a sababiyya. It sounds like that as well.
So when it comes to sababiyya, we're saying that the mudari that comes afterwards we're affirming a connection. This will occur.
Yeah, so that which is before fa is the cause of that which is after fa. Right? So the fa comes to show the cause. Right? So, oh Allah, guide me. Right? The cause of what that causes is fa'amal khair. That's causing me to do good. Right? Or Allah, guide me and I will do good. Right? Meaning, because of that, I will do good. And it's the same thing. It's the cause as well. Right? But it has a different flavor to it, you can say.
So what kind of relationship does the waw al-ma'iyya establish between the talab and the mudari that comes after?
A very similar one. But the waw ma'iyya, it shows its withness meaning shows a lot more when it's not used with a verb. right? Like for instance, ji'tu wa Zaydan, I came with Zayd. When it's used with a maf'ul ma'hu, it's very clear. But when it's used here, it's not as clearly as with, translated as with, right? So, kind of, halfway.
I think there might be more examples.
Yeah, halfway. I think he's gonna. There he says, وَأَمَّا النَّهْيُ, as for a negative command, oh, we did that. وَأَمَّا الْإِسْتِفْهَامُ, number 4. This is 4 out of how many? 8. Right? As for a question, هل حفظت دروسك فأسمعها لك? Have you memorized your lessons? Thus I can make you hear them. Oh, sorry, that I can listen to them for you. Right? Did you memorize so I can listen to? Right? Or yeah. Okay, did you memorize your lessons? I will listen to them for you. Right? So it's tough to translate a lot of these. Oh, وَأَسْمَعَهَا لَكَ. So it was أَسْمَعُ. Right? Now it becomes أَسْمَعَ because it's mansub. So somebody might read this, right? فَأَسْمَعَهَا. Is it form 4? Right? أسمع, right? أسمع sounds like أسلم, right? Form 4, أفعل. Right? But you would tell them, why would you tell them this is not form 4, this is form 1? How would you tell them? This is a fa. And the fa made it mansub, therefore it's not originally أسمع, it was originally أسمعu. Right? Thus I will listen to them for you. Right? Did you memorize your lessons? So that I can listen to them for you, or causing me to listen to them. It's tough to translate. وَأَمَّا الْعَرْضُ, as for a request, وَهُوَ طَلَبْ بِالرِّفْقٍ. It's a request with gentleness. Right? And ard is kind of, they also use it for an offer. So if there's like a special offer discount, they'll say, an ard in the store, you'll see al-ard in big letters. Right? An offer. So it is a request with gentleness. أَلَا تَزُورُونَنَا فَنُكْرِمَكَ. Will you not visit us so that we can honor you? Will you not, won't you come to my house so I can feed you? Right? Won't you come over so I can give you something? So I can give you a gift? So that. Right? Or thus causing me to thus allowing me to honor you. أو وَنُكْرِمَكَ أَلَا تَزُورُونَنَا وَأُكْرِمَكَ. Right, will you not visit us and we will honor you? وَأَمَّا التَّحْضِيد حَضَّ يَحُضُّ means to encourage, right? Allah says وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ, and they do not encourage to the feeding of the poor. فَهُوَ الطَّلَبْ مَعَ حَثٍّ وَإِزْعَاجٍ. It is a request which entails an encouragement and a type of bothering of somebody, right? To bother somebody. هَلَّا أَدَيْتَ وَاجِبَكَ فَيَشْكُرَكَ أَبُوكَ. Right, so it's almost like an encouragement to do something that you normally wouldn't want to do. Right, so he says, will you not do your homework so your father will be grateful to you? Right, so your father will be pleased with you? Will you not do your homework so that your father will be grateful? Or وَيَشْكُرَكَ أَبُوكَ, and your father will be grateful? وَأَمَّا التَّمَنِّي, tamanni is to request that which is impossible. Right? So the word that's used here is layta. Okay. أو مَا فِيهِ عُسْرٌ, or so to request that which is impossible, or to request that which is which in it is difficulty. نحو قول الشاعر, like the statement of the poet, ليت الكواكب تدنو لي فأنظمها أنقود مدح فما أرضى لكم كلمي. If only the stars were to come close so I could arrange them. Right? And nadam is that word is used for jewelry, like a necklace. Right? So he says, عقود مدح, as a necklace of praise. فما أرضى لكم كلمي. So, my words, فما أرضى لكم كلمي. My words will be pleasing to you. ومثله قول الآخر. Another example, ألا ليت الشباب يعود يوما فأخبره بما فعل المشيب. If only, again, later, right? It's the seeking of that which is impossible or that which is difficult, improbable, you can say. ألا ليت الشباب يعود يوما. If only youth would come back one day, so I can tell it بما فعل المشيب, of that which the old person has done. Right, so I wish I could go back to my youth and tell myself at that time what the wisdoms of an older person. Right? So, like people say, I wish I could go back and do it all again, right? Knowing what I know now. Right? فأخبره بما فعل المشيب. So later, الشباب يعود. So if only youth would come back, يوما, just for a day, فأخبره. That's causing me, allowing me, you could say, that's allowing me to inform it of that which the elder me has done. He says, وَنَحْوَ لَيْتَ لِي مَالًا فَأَخُجَّ مِنْهُ. If only I had wealth, فَأَخُجَّ مِنْهُ, thus allowing me to make hajj with it. Right, so the meaning you can translate is allowing me. Right? It works in the English. Or you could say that's causing me to be able to, right? Make hajj with it. So that's tamanni. Tamanni and raja, they both have the same translation. Both mean hope or desire. Right? وَأَمَّا الرَّجَاءُ, as for hope, right? فَهُوَ طَلَبُ الْأَمْرِ لِقَرِيبِ الْحُصُولِ. الْأَمْرِ لِقَرِيبِ الْحُصُولِ. It is to seek a matter whose obtaining is possible. Right? It's qareeb, it's something tangible. Something that is ba'id, a lot of times is used for far-fetched, right? Or impossible. Right? Qareeb is something that is probable. Right? So it is the seeking of an affair which is probable to obtain. القريب الحصول. نحو لعل الله يشفيني فأزورك. Hopefully Allah will give me shifa, give me cure, so that I can visit you. I mean, thus allowing me to be able to visit you, or causing me to be able to visit you. So perhaps Allah will give me, if Allah gives me shifa, then I will come visit you. وقد جمع بعض العلماء هذه الأشياء التسعة التي تسبق الفاء والواو في بيت واحد وهو. He says that one of the scholars, بعض العلماء, when بعض is mudaf to a plural, it means one. Right? So one of the scholars has combined all 9 of these things which have a fa before them and a waw before them in one line of poetry. So he says, مُرْ وَدْعُ وَانْهَ وَسَلْ وَعْرِضْ لِحَظِّهِمُ تَمَنَّ وَارْجُو كَذَاكَ النَّفِيُّ قَدْ كَمُلَا. MashaAllah, be good to memorize this. مُرْ وَدْعُ وَانْهَ وَسَلْ وَعْرِضْ لِحَظِّهِمُ تَمَنَّ وَارْجُو كَذَاكَ النَّفِيُّ قَدْ كَمُلَا. Okay, so mur is a command. Means to command. Right? It is the command of command. Right? It was u'mur, right? But then because of the 2 hamzas, it just became more. Right? Wad'u, and make du'a and call. Wanha, and prohibit. Nahi, wasal, and ask. Right? Which is istifham. Wasal, wa'rid, and request. لِحَظِّهِمُ تَمَنَّى, and for their encouragement, تَمَنَّى, hope. وَرْجُو, and desire and hope, كَذَاكَ النَّفِيُّ قَدْ كَمُلَ, and as well as the negative statement, has been completed. Right. So he mentioned the first two as well, and nafi as well. Any questions on that before we go on?
My understanding of the talab is that the jawab al-talab can be fi'l mudari in jazm. So what meaning does that give versus fi'l mudari in nasab in response to talab with Allah?
Say it again.
So what is the
Second
difference
part?
between the jawab al-talab being a fi'l mudari jazm or fi'l mudari nasab with these two particles?
Example of it being a jazm would be
So for example,
اذكر الله يذكركم.
yes, versus اذكر الله فيذكركم. Well, فيذكركم.
فيذكركم. Yeah, that would be different in meaning.
Could you
So like for instance, remember Allah, He will remember you. Right? If you do this, this will happen. Right? وَاذْكُرُ اللَّهَ فَيَذْكُرَكَ. If you remember Allah, so that He can remember you. Right? Because it's a cause, thus causing Him to be able to remember you. Worlds apart. Make sense? Because fa means sabab. Sabab is the cause, right? So that you doing that causes the other one to be able to happen, to be attainable. So if you don't do this, then this will not be possible for Allah to remember you, which is an issue, right? You can't really say that, right? Whereas remember Allah, He will remember you. Right?
So using another example, like if I were to say, حفظت or هل حفظت دروسك أسمعها لك. So did you memorize your lessons, right?
Yeah, but هل حفظت دروسك is not amr.
That's talab. So does the
Yeah,
also
so the jawab al-amr is different. Right? One of the types of talab is amr. So that would apply there. Like for instance, احفظ درسك, right? اسمعها. Right? Memorize your lessons, I'll listen to them. Right? Will you please, right? Have you memorized your lessons so that I can listen to them? It's different.
Okay. So in the terms of the jazm, it doesn't necessarily affirm a causative relationship between the first, the talab, and the jawab.
Yeah,
But the fa
correct.
does.
Yeah, the fa is the cause, whereas the jawab of an amr is more of a condition.
Okay.
Like, so, if you do this, then I will do this. Right? It's a condition. Right? Remember Allah, He will remember you. Right? Whereas if you said remember Allah, then thus allowing Him to remember you, whereas the cause. So it says, وَقَدْ ذَكَرَ الْمُؤَلِّفُ أَنَّهَا ثَمَانِيَةٌ. He says, and the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, mentioned that there are 8. لأنه لم يعتبر الرجاء منها. Because the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, does not consider raja to be amongst these, amongst talab. Right, so the person who wrote the poem, he added raja to the poem, thus making it 9. Sorry, no, not 9. Yeah, so he didn't consider raja from amongst them. So in Al-Ajrumiyya, he didn't add. He says the line of Ajrumiyya itself, فَالنَّوَاصِبُ عَشْرَةٌ. The words that cause the mudari to be mansub are 10. وَهِيَ أَن, لَن, إِذَن, كَي. We mentioned those, the first 4. لَامُ كَي, وَلَامُ الْجُحُودِ, وَحَتَّى, وَالْجَوَابُ بِالْفَاءِ وَالْوَاوِ أَوْ وَأَوْ. وَالْجَوَابُ بِالْفَاءِ وَالْوَاوِ وَأَوْ.
Sorry, I'm just a bit confused. Who didn't consider raja as part of talab?
The mu'allif, the author.
But doesn't he mention it here?
Yeah, so the Sharh mentions it.
Oh, we're saying that Imam Ajrun did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So far we did Lam al-Juhud was the first one. The second one was Hatta, with its two possible meanings. The third and fourth, Fa Sababiyya and Waw al-Ma'iyya. The Fa of cause and the Waw of witness, if that's a possible translation. So he says, وَالْخَامِسُ الْحَرْفُ الْخَامِسُ أَوْ, right, is or. ويشترط في هذه الكلمة أن تكون بمعنى إلا. But it is a condition, prerequisite for this أو, this word أو, to be amongst these, that it has the meaning of إلا, right, of except. أو بمعنى إله, or it has the meaning of to, or till. Right, والضابط الأولى, so in regards to it meaning except, instead of it meaning its apparent meaning, oh, which is if, or or, أن يكون ما بعدها ينقضي دفعة لأقتلن الكافر أو يسلم. Right, is that أو يكون ما بعد, that which is after oh immediately ceases. Right, if that which is after oh immediately ceases, then it will have the meaning of except. Then it can have the meaning of except. So it says, لَأَقْتُلَنَّ الْكَافِرَ, I will kill the ingrate, أَوْ يُسْلِمَ, unless he becomes Muslim, unless he submits. Right, so that which is after أو will immediately cease that which is before أو, دفعة, right, immediately. Right, so the killing will stop as soon as that which after O happens. Make sense? وضابط الثانية, and the second one is meaning, one will have the meaning of إله, to, T-O. أن يكون ما بعدها ينقضي شيئا فشيئا, is that which after O ceases bit by bit, not immediately but slowly. نحو قول الشاعر, like the poet's statement, لأستسهلن الصعب أو أدرك المنى فمن قادت الآمال إلا لصابري, that I will seek to make easy the difficulty until I reach the highest, my goal, the muna, right? That we did just now. Tamanni has the same root letters, which means the desire, right? So muna is the goal, right? So you can say, I will bear the difficulty ila udrikal muna, until I reach thy goal. فَمَنْ قَادَتِ الْآمَالُ, for hopes are not fulfilled إِلَّا لِصَابِرِ, except for the patient person. Hopes are not fulfilled except for the patient person. So لَأَسْتَسْهِلَنَّ comes from the word sahal, right? And from 10 is talab, I will seek to make the difficulty easy. أو أدرك المنى, إلى أن أدرك المنى, إلى أن أدرك المنى, until I can reach my goal. So all of these have a meaning of an in there. أو أدرك المنى. Any questions on that? So that was the last one. Out of the 5 words who make the fi'l mudari' mansub because of an an which is hidden after it, necessarily. There has to be an an there.
Just a clarification. The first one, when you said وَمَا الْقِسْمُ الثَّالِث, the first one you said was لام الجحود وضابطها أن تسبق ما كان أو لم يكن. So are we saying that its meaning can be ما كان or لم يكن?
تسبق be ما كان, that is preceded by either ما كان or لم يكن. That's why they're in brackets. Right?
And So lam al-juhud was okay, so for example, okay, see ma kana Allah liyadhar al-mu'minin. So ma kana had to come first.
Mm.
And it's for emphasis, I guess? What would the
No.
lam al-juhud be for?
Yeah, it has an emphasis in it. I mean, it's not befitting. It kind of emphasizes the negation, like you said. So like, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا. Right? It's not for Allah that He should take His son. مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ أَن يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا. Sometimes it's used with "an" also. Right? مَا كَانَ النَّبِيُّ مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ أَن يَغُلَّ. It's not for the Prophet to deceive. And it's not quality of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now he starts in the jawazim. So all of those go back to the original four. And lan kay idan. Right? The next two types and everything after that all relate to an. Right? So you could say that if somebody said that the nawasib, in some books they mention the nawasib are four. Right? So how do you reconcile between those seemingly contradictory statements? That they are four, right? There are the root ones. But from n, there are many other ones that relate to n. But it's because of the n that the word is mansub after it. Right? Either the n is necessarily there or it's possibly there. So he says, Jawazimul Mudari'. I don't think we'll be able to do much of this, but we'll start a little bit, inshallah. He says, وَالْجَوَازِمُ ثَمَانِيَ عَشَرٍ. That those words which cause the mudari' to be majzoom, right? To be in the state of jazm. And jazm is only for verbs. No nouns could ever be majzoom. So there are 18 things. وَهِيَ لَمْ وَلَمَّا وَأَلَمْ وَأَلَمَّا وَلَامُ الْأَمْرِ وَالدُّعَاءِ وَلَا فِي النَّهِي وَالدُّعَاءِ وَإِنْ وَمَنْ وَمَا وَمَهْمَا وَإِذْ مَا وَأَيُّ وَمَتَى وَأَيْنَ وَأَيَّانَ وَأَنَّا وَحَيْثُمَا وَكَيْفَمَا وَإِذَا فِي الشِّعْرِ خاصة. MashaAllah. So he says, وَأَقُولُ الْأَدْوَاتُ الَّتِي تَجْزِمُ الْفِعْلَ الْمُضَارِعَ 18 جَازِمًا. And those words which cause the fi'l mudari' to become majzoom are 18 words. Right? وَهَذِهِ الْأَدْوَاتِ تَنْقَسِمُ إِلَى قِسْمَيْنِ. And these words divide into two types. الْقِسْمُ الْأَوَّلِ يَجْزِمْ فِعْلًا وَاحِدًا. The first type are those letters which cause only one verb to become majzoom. And the qism al-thani yajzam fi'lin. And the second type, they cause two verbs to become majzoom. Alright, so udhkur yadhkurka. Right, udhkurullaha is an amr. Alright, majzoom. Yadhkurka. Jawab al-amr, also majzoom. Two verbs become majzoom. Right. So he mentions in there. So things like that will come. So he says, أَمَّا الْقِسْمُ الْأَوَّلُ فَسِتَّةُ أَحْرُفًا. As for the first type, then there are 6 harf. وَهِيَ لَمْ وَلَمَّا وَأَلَمْ وَأَلَمَّا وَلَامُ الْأَمْرِ وَالدُّعَاء وَلَا فِي النَّهِي وَالدُّعَاء وَكُلُّهَا حُرُوفٌ بِإِجْمَاعِ النُّحَاةِ. And all of them are considered huruf, right? And with the consensus of the scholars of Nahu. And because certain things, like for instance, men, right? We mentioned out of the 18 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, the 9th one is men. Men, some scholars said no, it's ism mawsul. It's an ism. It's not a harf. It's an ism, right? So he says these 6 are, and with consensus, they're all huruf. They're not ism. They're not nouns. They are huruf. Okay? So what time are we supposed to go to? 7. Yeah?
Yes.
Jamil. So we have time. Amma, lam. So the first one, lam, right? And we know that lam, I think what you have mentioned, what you probably has already mentioned, that lam enters in on a fi'l mudari', but it gives it a past tense meaning. So he says, amma lam, as for lam, فحرف نفي, it is a negative harf. وجزم, it causes the verb after to be majzum. وقلب, right? And qalaba means to flip, to turn, right? Meaning it turns the mudari' to a past tense meaning. Right? It turns that present tense meaning, which for instance, aktubu means I am writing or I will write. But if I put lam aktub, I did not write. So I switched it, I changed it. That it changes it back to past tense. نحو قوله تعالى لم يكن الذين كفروا, that those, the sentence is not finished. لم يكن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين منفكين. Right, that those who disbelieved from amongst the Ahl Kitab or from amongst the Mushrikeen, they were not separated, right, broken up, dispersed into factions and sects. And they were not. So but yakunu means is not or will not. When I put lam, that means was not. So lam yakun. It was yakunu. You put the lam, the last letter becomes majzum. Yakun. Right? There's 2 seconds though. There's a second on the waw and on the noon. When there's 2 seconds, you can't have that. So one of them falls off, and the weaker of the 2 letters, which is waw, which is the sick letter, literally, right, falls off. So lam yakun. Lam yakun. And then because after yakun, right, there's an alif lam, that becomes lam yakunil ladina, just for in order to join. Otherwise it's lam yakun al ladina. وقوله سبحانه وتعالى, and Allah's statement, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا, say, you did not believe. You did not believe. You have not believed. Right? And then the rest of this verse comes up, وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ, and faith has yet to enter into your heart. Lamma is also one of the words that causes the next word to be jazm. So, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا, no, قَالُوا آمَنَّا, they said, we believe. It says, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا, say, you have not believed. Right? وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ, وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلْ, jazm. Right? Whereas, faith has yet to enter your heart. So just say, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا. Don't say we believe, say we are Muslim. That we not believe. Right? So the difference between Islam and Iman. Okay, so وَأَمَّا لَمَّا means has yet. وَأَمَّا لَمَّا فَحَرْفُ مِثْلِ لَمْ, it's a harf, just like lam is. Just like lam is in regards to it being nafi, which is a negative, or jazm, and it causes the verb to be majzum, وَالْقَلْب, and it also gives a past tense, has yet. Right? وَنَحْوَ قَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى وَلَمَّا يَذُوقُوا عَذَابِي, right? And they have yet to taste my punishment. My punishment, the ya falls off. It was عَذَابِي, but it became عَذَابِي. So you stop لَمَّا يَذُوقُوا عَذَابِ. وَأَمَّا أَلَمْ, right? So أَلَمْ. Sure.
So as for lamma, is it implicit that what it is negating is expected to occur?
What it is in negating?
So lamma yadhuku adha. So versus lam yadhuku adha. So the translation is not yet, but does it have an implicit not yet, but it will happen when lamma is used, or does it simply mean not yet? Maybe it may or may not.
You have to look at the context. What is the verse before? Excuse me.
Sorry, which
لما يذوقوا عذاب. Surah Sad.
What's the one after it?
What is the beginning of that verse? Which is a hard question for anybody who's memorized. The word after it, the verse after it is very easy. How the verse before it is, or the word it starts. أنزل الذكر عليه من بينهم أنزل عليه ذكر من بيننا بل هم في شك من ذكري بل لما يذوقوا عذاب. Rather they are in doubt of my reminder. Rather they have yet to taste my punishment. So it doesn't have. It seems like in the context you would have to decide that. I don't think there's any gold like black or white rule. So he says. أما ألم. So we have ألم نشرح لك صدرك, right? ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك, right? فهو لم. It is لم, right? So there's لم in there. زيدت عليه همزة التقرير, right? But there's a hamza added to it, right? A hamza, which is a hamza للتقرير. تقرير means to affirm. Right? ألم نشرح لك صدرك. Have we not? Right? Have we not expanded for you your chest? Have you not seen what we did, what your Lord did with the people of the elephant? So it's a question, that is a question, but it's not a question seeking an answer. Right? It's almost to emphasize the fact that it was done, and you remind somebody like that, right? Didn't I already give it to you? Do you want an answer? Are you looking for an answer? No, you're telling them. You're affirming to them. I gave it to you already. Right? Didn't I already give you your allowance? Right? Have I not already? Right? Have I not expanded for you? So, وَأَمَّا أَلَمَّا فَهُوَ لَمَّا وَزِيدَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْهَمْزَةِ. So, أَلَمَّا is لَمَّا with an extra hamza. So he said, أَلَمَّا أُحْسِنْ إِلَيْكَ. Right? Have I yet to do good to you? Have I yet to do good to you? Or have I not done good to you?
Is it like this minuscule difference from alam? Like I don't see the difference.
Alam and lam?
Alam.
So lamma means has yet.
Sorry, alam. Alam and alamma.
Alam and alamma? Yeah, so alam is lam with an emphasis. Alamma is lamma with a hamza.
With emphasis as well?
Most likely. Usually they say كثرة المباني تدل على كثرة المعاني. An increase in letters adds to an increase in meaning. Right, so if I said, for instance, قتل, he killed. If I said قتل, I added a letter. It means he destroyed him, right? He massacred him. So it would increase the meaning. It's not the same. You can't translate he killed them, and you could put killed them with an exclamation point. That would work. Right, so adding a letter usually, especially in regards to the Quran, like there's no letter that has no meaning. But this is not a ayah, so it could be ziyadah, just extra. وأما اللام, as for lam, فقد ذكر المؤلف أنها تكون للأمر والدعاء. That the author rahimahullah ta'ala has already mentioned that this lam comes for a command or for a dua. وكل من الأمر والدعاء يقصد به ضرب حصول الفعل طلبا جازما. And both amr and dua, the meaning of them are the seeking of, the request for the obtaining of an action in such a way that is a firm request. So an amr, right, do this. So it's a firm request that action be attained, right? Oh Allah, guide me. It's a firm request, right, that an action be obtained. But amr is from a higher authority to a lower person, whereas dua is from a lower person to a higher authority. So وَالْفَرْقُ بَيْنَهُمَا, and the difference between the two is, and al-amra, just like we just mentioned, يكون من الأعلى للأدنى. That the command, it comes from the higher person to the lower person, or the higher one to the lower one. كما في الحديث, just like is mentioned in the hadith, فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت, then let him, which is an amr, a third person command, then let him speak good, say good, or let him be quiet. Alright, so the Prophet ﷺ is أعلى منا. He is more authoritative than us, so that's a command. Alright, وأما الدعاء, as for dua, فيكون من الأدنى للأعلى, it comes from the one of lower status to the one of higher status, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ليقضي علينا ربك. Let your Lord pass judgment upon us, mean allow us to die. Let your Lord allow us to die. Right? This is the people of Jahannam asking the angel Malik, who is the warden of Jahannam, to this question, that your Lord should let us die, which is a command, but since it comes from one lower to the one higher, then it's considered a dua.
Is this lam only used in the third person mudari, or can it be entered on the second person?
Lam lil amr is for a third person.
And second person would just be amr.
And first person.
And first person.
لنعلم.
Okay.
But the second person hadr, the second person, a command, there's no lam. If'al, ijlis, right? Udhkuru. Right? But if you want to do third person, right? ليفعل, ليفعلا, ليفعلوا, لتفعل, لتفعلا, ليفعلن, لتفعل. No, then ليفعل, لنفعل. Right, so anta, antuma, antuma, antiya, antuma, antunna, all those are second person command. If'al, if'ala, if'alu, if'ali, if'ala, if'alna. So there's no lam on that. They could put a lam for emphasis, but not this lam. Right? You can say, that would be something different. Yeah, so third person or first person, but definitely not second person. وأما لا, as for the word لا, فقد ذكر المؤلف أنها تأتي للنهي والدعاء. That the word لا comes, that the message that the author, عليه رحمة الله تعالى, mentioned that it comes for nahi, a negative command or a prohibitive, والدعاء, and for dua. وكل منهما يقصد به طلب الكف عن الفعل وتركه. That, and in each of these two, meaning the negative command and the dua, which is preceded by la, is a request that an action be stopped or left. Alright, and left. So if it is a request from one who is superior to one who is lower, then it is a nahi, it's a negative command. Right? If it is a request from one who is lower to one who is higher, then it's a dua. A dua for something to not happen. So he says, وَالْفَرْقُ بَيْنَهُمَا أَنَّ النَّهْيَ يَكُونُ مِنْ الْأَعْلَى إِلَى الْأَدْنَى. The difference between them is that nahi, the negative command, is from the superior to the less superior, like Allah says, لَا تَخَفْ. Do not be afraid. وَنَحْوَ لَا تَقُولُوا رَاعِنَا. And do not say رَاعِنَا. And there's a whole tafsir about what that means. Right? It was one of the ways that the Yahud would make fun of the believers. Because in their language, ra'ina meant one thing, whereas the Muslims thought that it meant a different thing. Right? What's the other ayat? وَلَوْ قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا لَيًّا بِأَلْسِنَتِهِمْ وَطَعْنَا فِي الدِّينِ. How's it start?
No.
Again, I did it too. إن الذين هادوا يحرفون الكلمة عن مواضعه ويقولون سمعنا وعصينا واسمع غير مسمع وراعنا ليا بألسنتهم. They said راعنا, easy with their tongue, وطعنا في الدين, and as a poke at the religion, right? To insult the religion, an attack on the religion. So لا تقولوا راعنا, do not say راعنا. Amr or nahi, a negative command from Allah to us, so it's a command. وَنَحْوَ لَا تَغْلُوا فِي دِينِكُمْ. Do not be extreme in your deen, in your religion. Right? So وأما الدعاء, as for dua, فيكون من الأدنى للأعلى, it will become from one of less superiority to the one who is more superior. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا, oh Allah, do not take us to account. Right? So it's not considered a command because no one can command Allah. Right? It is considered as a dua. وقوله جل شأنه, and his statement سبحانه وتعالى لا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا, and do not put upon us a covenant. Do not make us bear a covenant. Right? كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا, as you did make those who before us bear. So that's the first type. Right? So these, all of these words, right, can only make one word majzum. Only one verb majzum. And all 6 of them are huruf with the consensus of the ulama of nahu. أما القسم الثاني, and as for the second type, وهو ما يجزم فعلين, and that which causes 2 verbs to be majzum. Right? You could say it's muta'addi, that it goes past the first word and it also affects the second verb as well. Right? ويسمى أولهما فعل الشرط, the first of the 2 verbs which are made majzum are called the verb of condition. It's the shart. It's the condition. وَثَانِيهِمَا, and the second of the 2 verbs which are made majzum is the jawab al-shart, or the وَجَزَاؤُهُ. It is the response to the condition or the fulfillment of the condition. So I say, if this, then this. Right? So the if is the condition, it's the first verb. Then this, that second this, is the response to the condition or the fulfillment of the condition, which is the second verb, and both of them are majzum. فَهُوَ عَلَى أَرْبَعَةِ أَنْوَاعٍ. This is of 4 types. He says, النوع الأول, the first is حرف باتفاق. The first one is a harf unanimously. Right? وَالنوع الثاني اسم باتفاق. The second is a noun unanimously. It's considered a noun. وَالنوع الثالث, and the third is that it's a harf على الأصح. According to the difference of opinion, the most prevalent opinion is that it is a harf, it's not an ism. And then the fourth, وَالنَّوْعُ الرَّابِعُ اسْمٌ عَلَى الْأَصَحِ, is that it's a noun according to the most prevalent opinion. So let's start for each one of them. So the first one, which is a harf by consensus, بِاتِّفَاق. أَمَّا النَّوْعُ الْأَوَّلُ فَهُوَ إِن. The word in. So nobody says that in is an ism. Right? In unanimously is a harf. وحده, just in though. Right? In تذاكر تنجح. So in translated as if. Right? If you revise, you will be successful. If you revise, then you will be successful. So if this, then this, the condition is revising. The response to that condition or the fulfillment of that condition is success. So if you revise, you will be successful. So in makes both of them majzum. فإن حرف شرط جازم باتفاق النحاة. So it says in is the harf of condition. It causes the verb after it to be majzum according to the unanimous opinion of the scholars of Nahu and Nuhat, they're called. يجزم فعلين, it causes 2 verbs to be majzum. الأول فعل شرط, the first is the verb of condition, and the second is the response or the fulfillment of that condition. وتذاكر فعل مضارع. تذاكر is a فعل مضارع. فعل الشرط مجزوم بأن. It is the verb of condition, which is majzum because of in. Sorry, not in, not an. I said an. It's in. وعلامة جزمه السكون وفاعله ضمير مستتر فيه وجوبا تقديره أنت. Its sign of its being majzum is the sakin. تذاكر. تذاكر. You can see the sakin there. And the doer of the verb is a pronoun which is hidden inside it necessarily, which is أنت. يعني أنت تذاكر. You revise. If you revise. So where is the you? It's inside. وتنجح فعل مضارع as well. It's also فعل مضارع. جواب الشرط وجزاؤه. It is the response of the condition or the fulfillment of the condition. مجزوم بإن وعلامة جزمه السكون. same thing as before. وفاعله ضمير مستتر فيه وجوبا تقديره أنت. So it's also the doer is hidden pronoun أنت. MashaAllah. So that was number 7, the 7th harf. As for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, he puts them in the second type. What is the second type? Anyone?
That which is not a harf, by consensus.
That which is an ism, by consensus, yeah. Not a harf, could be a verb, right? It's a noun by consensus. So, وَهُوَ الْمُتَّفِقُ عَلَى أَنَّهُ اسم. It is that which is unanimously agreed upon that it is a noun. فَتِسْعَةُ أَسْمَاءَ. So, and they are 9 nouns. وَهِيَ مَنْ وَمَا وَأَيُّ وَمَتَى وَأَيَّانَ وَأَيْنَ وَأَنَّ وَحَيْثُمَا وَكَيْفَمَا. تمام. So the first one is man, right? Who, or whoever it can be used, right? فَمِثَالُ مَنْ, example of man is قَوْلُكَ, you're saying مَنْ يُكْرِمْ جَارَهُ يُحْمَدْ. Whoever, right? So this man is it's something that's just general. Whoever honors his neighbor, he is praised. Right? Then he is praised. Right? He's praiseworthy. وَمَنْ يُذَاكِرْ يَنْجَحْ. Whoever revises succeeds. Whoever honors his neighbor is praised. Whoever revises succeeds. So this, it makes both verbs مجزوم. وقوله تعالى, in the verse of the Quran, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. It was يَرَاهُ. And when a verb who ends in a harf illah, it becomes majzum. You can tell that it's majzum because the harf illah falls off. Right? So instead of yarahu, it's yarahu. Like alam tara kayfa. So مثال فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة. Whoever does an atom's weight of good, yarahu, will see it. He sees it. He'll see it. ومثال ما. So the second one is ما. قولك ما تصنع تجزى به. Whatever, so this again is general. So whoever is the first one. Whatever you do, you will be recompensed for it. ما تقرأ تستفيد منه. Whatever you read, you will benefit from it. وما تنفقوا من خير يوفى إليكم. Whatever you spend of good, you will be rewarded in full for it. So وفى يوفي, right? مجهول would be وفي يوفى. يوفى with an alif maksura, right? The ya at the end. Right? So that harf illa falls off. يوفى إليكم. يوفى إليكم. So both of them majzum. تنفقون became تنفقوا, and يوفى became يوفى. So because of ma. So whatever you spend of good, you will be rewarded for it in full. وفى means to reward and to give in full. ومثال أي قولك أي كتاب تقرأ تستفيد منه. Whichever, so now all of these are so far very general. Whichever book you read, you will benefit from. أي كتاب تقرأ تستفيد منه. وأيا ما تدعو فله الأسماء الحسنى. And whichever of them you read, whichever you call, then for him is the most beautiful names. Right? So, أدعو الله أو أدعو الرحمن. Call Allah or call Ar-Rahman. Right? أيا ما تدعو, whichever you call, then for him is the most beautiful names. Right, so أيٌ, this tanween is for iwal. يعني أيهما تدعو فله أسماء الحسنى. أيما. ومثال متى قولك متى تلتفت إلى واجبك تنال رضا ربك. Whenever you turn towards your duty, you will obtain the pleasure of your Lord. So whenever, right? It's not even in English, right? So far we have whoever, whatever, whichever, whenever, right? Is the theme. وقول الشاعر, and the poet, he said, أنا بنو جلاء وطلاع الثنايا متى أضع العمامة تعرفوني متى أضع العمامة تعرفوني. I am the son of Jala, the one, I don't know what that means. Allahu A'lam. But the second part means, whenever I put down my turban, you know who I am. Whenever I put down imama, I put down the turban, you know who I am. ومثال أيانا. Now أيانا and mata have the same translation, right? But أيانا is only used for things of great importance. So you don't say أيانا جئت من الدكان. When did you come from the store? You would never say أيانا in that situation. You would say mata. Or mata walidta. When were you born? You would never say أيانا ولدت. Right? But Allah says أيانا يسألون أيانا يبعثون. They ask about the day. They ask about when they will be resurrected. Right? ويسألون أيانا يوم القيامة. ويسأل. What is it? يسأل الإنسان. يسأل الإنسان أيانا يوم القيامة. يسأل أيانا يوم القيامة. When is the day of judgment? So it's for something of importance. He says ومثال أيانا قولك أيانا تلقاني أكرمك. Whenever you meet me, I will honor you. وقول الشاعر فأيانا ما تعدل به الريح تنزلي. يعني تنزل. The second, it's majzum, but they put, because of the poetry, they put the kasra. Right? Which is the proof of that is that there is no such thing as tanzili. There is no such thing as a verb that's majroor unless there's a reason. One is iltiqa al-sakinain. One of the reasons that a verb will have a kasra is that there's 2 seconds. Lam yakuni alladhina, right? Because of the 2 seconds. The other one is for the wazn shi'r, to fulfill the meter of the poetry. فَأَيَّانَ مَا تَعْدِلْ بِهِ الرِّيحُ تَنْزِلِي. Whenever the wind becomes calm, tanzili, right? It or you descends. So I don't know what the rest of the verse means. ومثال أينما, wherever. أينما قولك أينما تتوجه تلقى صديقا. Wherever you turn, you will meet a friend. وقولك أينما يوجهه لا يأتي بخير. Wherever he turns him or directs him, he does not bring any good. And Allah gives an example of a slave, or a person who's wealthy and he spends in the path of Allah. And the other example is a slave. لا يقدر على شيء. He doesn't own anything. وهو كل على مولاه. And he's a burden to his master. أينما يوجهه, wherever the master directs him, لا يأتي بخير. He comes with no good. He brings about no good. Right? So Allah says, هل يستويان? هل يستويان? How could they ever be the same? Right? So that's an example of Allah, the one who gives everything, and the creation, who is weak, does nothing. Everything is there. So, in Surah Al-Nahl, so it says, وَأَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِككُمُ الْمَوْتِ. Wherever you are, death will reach you. وَمِثَالُ حَيْثُمَا, however, right? قول الشاعر حيثما تستقم يقدر لك الله نجاحا في غابر الأزمان. Wherever, or you could say whenever you are consistent, Allah will decree for you success in the passing of time, in the vicissitudes of time. وَمِثَالُ كَيْفَمَا. Haythu is a difficult word to translate. Haythu has a lot of valid translations in English. Once, right? Wow. From once. من حيث لا يحتسب. Right? From whence he could not. That's a really old English. From where he could not perceive. ومثال كيفما, however, كيفما قولك كيفما تكون الأمة يكون الولاة. However the nation is, the leaders will be. However the nation is, the leaders will be. وكيفما تكون نيتك يكون ثواب الله لك. However your intention is, your reward, Allah, the reward of Allah for you will be. So those are all of them. He says ويزاد على هذه الأسماء التسعة إذا. And added to these 10 nouns is the word إذا. And regarding it only in poetry. في الشعر كما قال المؤلف, just as the author mentioned, what he mentioned there, the last of the 18 is وإذا في الشعر خاصة. Right? And إذا is also one to them in regards in poetry only, right? Specifically in poetry. وذلك ضرورة, and that is out of necessity. ونحو قول الشاعر, what is the necessity of a poet? The meter of the poem, right? So because the poetry of Arabic is very specific in its meters, and it's by syllable. It's not by rhythm, right? It's not the same as English, right? Iambic pentameter, A, the first verse matches with the third, right? And the second with the fourth. It's a bit different style of meter. So he says, استغني ما أغناك ربك بالغناء وإذا تصبك خصاصة فتجملي. Suffice with the affluence which Allah has granted you, or وَإِذَا تُصِبَكَ خَصَاصَةٌ, and if poverty afflicts you, فَتَجَمَّلِي, then be beautiful. I'm sure the verse before it and the verse after it would give much more context. Right, so وَإِذَا is there, but it doesn't really, it's only out of the necessity of the wazn.
Does it have the meaning of in Sharh?
It could be. استغني ما أغناك ربك بالغناء. Yeah, I can see what translated is if.
And it also causes just into two verbs. Yes.
Yeah. وإذا تصبك فتجمل. رأيت المنايا خبط عشواء من تصب تمته ومن تخطئ يعمر فيهرمي. Wow, there's a lot of them in there. None of them are إذا though, so it's استشهاد مع الفارق. So he says وأما النوع الثالث. So what was the third type? So the first was harf, unanimously considered a harf. Second type is unanimously considered a noun. Right? The third type is a harf على الأصح, right? Sorry, it's here. The third type is a harf according to the most prevalent opinion. أما الثالث وهو ما اختلف فيه في أنه اسم أو حرف. It is that which is, there's a difference of opinion regarding whether it is a noun or a particle, a harf. وَالْأَصَحُّ, and the most authentic or the most prevalent opinion, which is the opinion of Imam Sibawayh, أنه حرف, that it is a harf. فذلك حرف واحد. It is a harf, that is correct. أنه حرف. فذلك حرف واحد. It is only one harf in this regard. وهو إذ ما. ومثاله قول الشاعر فإنك إذ ما تأتي ما أنت آمر به تلفي من إياه تأمر آتيا. وإنك إذ ما تأتي ما أنت مآمر. For you, for surely you, if you don't do that which you command to, تلفي من إياه تأمر آتية. I'm not sure what that means. What is lafa mean? Look it up. Alfa, yulfi. Oh, you'll find whoever you command to, whoever you command to coming. You'll find Alfa wa Alfa sayyidaha lada al-bab. And he found her master at the door. When Yusuf ran away from Zulaykha, he said, Alfa sayyidaha lada al-bab. He found her master, her husband at the door. So, what was your question?
Does this also mean if?
Yeah, I guess so. وأما النوع الرابع وهو ما اختلف في أنه اسم أو حرف. And the fourth type, which also there's a difference of opinion of whether it's a noun or a verb or a harf. والأصح أنه اسم, and the most prevalent opinion is that it is a noun. فذلك كلمة واحدة, and that is one word. First he said فذلك حرف واحد. Now he said فذلك كلمة واحدة. And this is one word. وهي مهما, ومثالها قوله تعالى مهما تأتينا به من آية لتسحرنا بها فما نحن لك بمؤمنين. Whatever you bring to us of any sign, any miracle, for you to لتسحر, يعني so that you can لكي, يعني لتسحرنا, so that you can bewitch us by means of it, then we will not be believers of you. We will not believe in you. So whatever. وقول الشاعر إنك مهما تعطي بطنك سؤله وفرجك نال منتهى الذم أجمعه. لا إله إلا الله. Verily you, whenever you give your stomach and your privates what it requests, its desire, they will both reach the furthest extent of dispraise entirely. So as long as you continue to give your stomach and other parts what they want, then you continuously fall into them, which is the opposite of madah, blameworthy qualities, blameworthiness. So any questions on that? So he has a nice chart here on 148. Maybe inshallah we can have it printed for those who don't have the book, or the right book, and the right nuskha, the other nuskha. So he says those who give jazm to one verb, lam, lamma, alam, alamma, lam al-amr, wal du'a, lam fi nahi wal du'a, and all of them are huruf. Then he breaks the second part, those who make jazm on two verbs. There's those which are unanimous in what they are, and those which are, there's a difference of opinion in what they are. So the ones that are unanimous, in regards to the one is unanimously a harf, is only one, in. Those which are unanimously nouns, there's man, ma, ayyu, mata, ayyana, ayna, anna, haythima, kayfama, and ida in regards to poetry. And then those which are of difference of opinion, the one which is predominantly chosen to be a harf, which is idma, and the one which is predominantly chosen to be a noun, which is mahna. Did he give an example of anna?
Oh, anna with the ya maqsura? Or
Yeah.
sorry, alif maqsura.
Anna with the ya maksura. You did it, right? Anna.
Could it be one of those that falls under an?
I'm trying to think of an example. فأنا يستجاب You know any examples, Sidi Zain, from the
Of what?
Quran?
Anna?
Mm-hmm. ما قتل الإنسان ما أكثره من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره ثم السبيل يسره ثم أماته فأقبره. نعم. فلما فليضرب ولما يقضي ما أمره أن
أنا لم نطغ الماء فلم نكن
أما أن لما طغى الماء. تمام. We should find an example because he didn't mention it.
The 80% Quran vocabulary translates it as where from slash why. I don't know.
Interesting. So, do we have time to continue? عدد المرفوعات وأمثلتها. Okay, let's start inshallah. نستخدم الوقت. نبدأ نستخدم. Then he's going to enumerate those words which are marfu' and examples for them. So he says in the word marfu', right, that it can be bil huruf or bil harakah. Al-marfu' bil huruf is going to be with a dhamma, right, or either ظاهرا or مقدرا. Right? Either you're going to see the dhamma ظاهرة على آخر. You're going to see a dhamma, like for instance قال زيد, right? Or it's going to be مقدر, like قال موسى. You can't see it, but it's perceived to be there. Or it's going to be mu'rab bil huruf. Either if it's dual, it'll be with alif nun. قال رجلان. قال two men said. So they're marfu'. Or it's going to be jama mudhakkar salim will be waw nun. قال المؤمنون. مؤمنون. Right? If it is لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. If it, and also the asma al-khamsa. Right? قال أبوك. It'll be with a waw. أبوك. قال أبوك. قال أبو بكر. قال أخوك. So he says all the words that will be marfu' are bab marfu'at al-asma'i, the nouns which are marfu'. So he mentioned all verbs are marfu' unless proven otherwise. Right? But in regards to the nouns which are marfu', he says al-marfu'atu sab'atun. Regarding nouns that there are 7. Al-fa'ilu wal-maf'ulu alladhi lam yusamma fa'iluhu, which is the maf'ul whose doer has not been mentioned, meaning the na'ib fa'il, the substitute fa'il. وَالْمُبْتَدَأُ, the subject, وَخَبْرُهُ, and the predicate that goes with that subject, وَإِسْمُ كَانَ, the ism of كَانَ وَأَخَوَاتِهَا, any the ism of أَصْبَحَ, the ism of صَارَ, the ism of لَيْسَ, all of those are أخوات كَانَ. وَخَبْرُ إِنَّ, and the khabar of إِنَّ and its أخوات. So the khabar of أَنَّ, إِنَّ أَنَّ كَأَنَّ لَكِنَّ لَيْتَ لَعَلَّ. So the khabar of all of those would be marfu'. وَالتَّابِعُ لِلْمَرْفُوعِ, and that which is which follows a marfu'. So if it's mawsuf sifa, the mawsuf is marfu', the sifa is also marfu'. Right? And there's a few others. وَهُوَ أَرْبَعَةُ أَشْيَاء, and those which follow the word before it are 4 things, which is na'at, which is an example we just gave, mawsuf sifa, al-na'at wal-man'ut. وَالْعَطْفُ, so if I said جَاءَ زَيْدٌ, Zayd is fa'il, it's marfu'. Wa amrun. Okay, so, and amr is atf on Zayd, so it follows Zayd, it's also marfu'. Wa tawkeedu, qala Zaydun, Zaydun. And tawkeed is, you can do either by repeating the word, or repeating the verb, or repeating both, or repeating the nahi. Right? Wal badlu, qala Abu Hafsin, Umaru. Right? The father of Hafs said, so Abu Hafs is fa'il, right? Umaru is the badal, right? So it's another name for Abu Hafs, the father of Hafs is also Umar. The way you can tell that is if you were to erase one of the two, then the sentence still makes sense. Right, so I said, قال أبو بكر عامر بن قحافة ابن أبي قحافة. Right? So if I erase Abu Bakr, I said قال عامر ibn Abi Quhafa. Makes sense. If I erase Amr ibn Abi Quhafa, I said قال Abu Bakr. Makes sense. So one is just extra meaning. It doesn't really. قال Abu Hurairah عبد الرحمن bin Sakhar. Right? How many people know that his name was Abd al-Rahman bin Sakhar? MashaAllah. It's important to read the seerah of these people. MashaAllah. So he says, وأقول قد علمت مما مضى أن الاسم المعرب يقع في ثلاثة مواقع. And he says, I say, the Sharh, rahimahullah ta'ala, and you know what has already transpired from that which has already passed, that the ism, which is mu'rab, right, it accepts the i'rab, applies to three different positions. موقع الرفع, either the position of rafa, موقع النصب, nasab, or موقع الخفض, or khafd. So, meaning that nouns are never majzoom. That the only three apply are marfu', mansub, and majrur or makhfud. ولكل واحد من هذه المواقع عوامل تقتضيه. And for each one of these situations, there are words that are causative words that are demanded that demand that situation. وقد شرع المؤلف يبين لك ذلك على التفصيل. And the author has started to explain that to you in detail. وبدأ بذكر المرفوعات, and he started by mentioning the marfu'at لأنها الأشرف, because they are the most noble of all of them. وقد ذكر أن الاسم يكون مرفوعا في 7 مواضع. So this goes back to the famous khilaf of what is the meaning of the word ism. Some scholars, they said ism comes from the word wasmun, which means alama, a sign. Right? So Yusuf is the sign for this person. Right? Others said that it comes from the word sumu, which means ulu, which means a loftiness, right? An elevation. Why is it elevated? Because it's elevated over the fi'l, because the noun can be both a mubtada and a khabar, whereas the verb can only be a khabar. Right? The noun can be musnad and musnad ilayhi, whereas the verb can only be musnad. So it's better than the verb. So لأنها الأشرف, because it's, and marfu' itself means elevated. So he says أن الاسم يكون مرفوعا في 7 مواضع, that the nouns are marfu' in 7 places. إذا كان فاعلا, one is it's a fa'il, the doer. مثاله علي ومحمد في نحو قولك حضر علي وسافر محمد. Right? So he mentions 2 examples of it being fa'il. يكون نائبا عن الفاعل, or it's the substitute for the fa'il, which is also called المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله, the maf'ul whose fa'il is not named or mentioned. وهو الذي سماه المؤلف المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. Example, الغصن والمتاع من قولك قطع الغصن وسرق المتاع. The branch was cut and the belonging was stolen. Right? So who is the doer? We don't know. Right? It's never been mentioned. Why is this considered a maf'ul, whose doer has not been mentioned? Why? Because originally, when the doer's name was there, hypothetically, it was the maf'ul. So if I said, for instance, if the doer, who was at this moment unknown, was Zayd, hypothetically, it would be saraqa Zaydun al-mata'a. That mata' was originally a maf'ul, but since the fa'il is not mentioned, it becomes the substitute for the fa'il, and becomes suriqa al-mata'u. It becomes marfu'. Al-mubtada wal-khabaru, 3 and 4, the subject and predicate. Nahu Muhammadun musafirun. Muhammad is traveling. Wa Aliyun mujtahidun. Ali is a hard worker. Wa ismu kana wa ihda ikhwatiha, and the ism of kana and any one of its sisters. نحو إبراهيم والبرد من قولك كان إبراهيم مجتهدا. Ibrahim was hardworking. وأصبح البرد شديدا, and the cold became by morning very intense. Right, so أصبح has the meaning of صار, to become, but with an addition of a time period. Right, so أصبح means to become, صار في الصبح, in the morning. أضحى صار في الضحى, في الضحى. تمام. خبر إن وإحدى أخواتها, and the khabar of Inna and any one of its sisters, the sisters of Inna, like فاضل وقدير من قولك إن محمدا فاضل, verily Muhammad is virtuous. وإن الله على كل شيء قدير, يعني إن الله قدير على كل شيء, verily Allah is over all things able. Number 8, تابع المرفوع, that which follows the marfu', which are 4 types as he mentioned. The al-awwalu al-na'tu, the first is a description or adjective. وذلك نحو الفاضل والكريم من قولك زارني محمد الفاضل. Like when you say Muhammad the virtuous visited me. Right, so Muhammad and al-fadil are mawsuf sifa or na'at man'ud. So Muhammad is marfu', why? Because it's the fa'il. And fadil is the marfu' because it follows Muhammad in 4 things, which is gender, plurality, whether it's ma'rifa or nakira, and but it's i'rab. Right, so if Muhammad is marfu', al-fadil has to be marfu'. Otherwise it would not be considered na'at. قابلني رجل كريم, a noble man approached me. And then he says, وَالثَّانِي, the second of the 2 types of the tabi' of that which follows the marfu', second of the 4 types, of that which follows the marfu' is al-'atf, وهو على الضربين, عطف بيان وعطف نسق. Atf has 2 types, عطف bayan, which is just for clarity, and عطف nasq, which he mentioned here. And how to translate that? So he says, فَمِثَالُ عَطْفِ الْبَيَانِ, example of عطف being for clarity is عمر من قولك سافر أبو حفص عمر, is the father of Hafs, Umar, traveled. So Umar follows Abu Hafs. ومثال عطف النسق خالد من قولك تشارك محمد وخالد. Muhammad and Khalid participated together. والثالث التوكيد, the third is for emphasis, which added nafsuhu, or you can say, there's a few of them. أجمع, من قولك زارني الأمير نفسه, the leader himself visited me. So that nafsuhu follows al-amir. If you have more than 2 or 2 or more, for instance, جاءني الأمير والوزير والقاضي أنفسهم, you will make nafs plural, أنفسهم. But if you have 2, then there's a difference of opinion. Right? جاءني الأمير والقاضي أنفسهما is one opinion. Right? But you can say, نفسهما is one opinion, or أنفسهما. أنفسهما is the asah, is the أنفسهما. Example in the Quran, right?
أنفسهما.
No, it's not that. No, it's not there. So anfusu, to make it nafs plural, but the pronoun dual, that's the asah out of the 2. There is a khilaf though. So it follows not only in i'rab, but it follows also in plurality. And the pronoun has to match exactly. والرابع البدل, the alternative. ومثال أخوك من قولك حضر علي أخوك. Ali, your brother came. Ali, your brother came. Your brother Ali came. We would say in English. وإذا اجتمعت هذه التوابع كلها. Wow, he used one right there. إذا اجتمعت هذه التوابع كلها. كلها is تابع of التوابع. It's a tongue twister. أو بعضها, right? There's عطف. بعضها is عطف on كلها, and it's also a تابع of توابع. وإذا اجتمعت هذه التوابع كلها أو بعضها في كلام قدمت النعت ثم عطف البيان ثم التوكيد ثم البدل ثم عطف النسق. So if all of these following words or some of them come all together in one sentence, then you give preference. You put first the na'at, the adjective, then the atf bayan, right, that which is an atf for clarification, then the emphasis, then the badal, which is the alternative way of saying something, then the atf al-nasq, then the regular atf. تقول, you will say جاء الرجل الكريم علي نفسه صديقك وأخوه. SubhanAllah. The noble man, Ali himself, your friend, your brother, came. It sounds like he's being introduced for like some large like seminar type gathering. Right? They do this a lot. فضيلة الشيخ العلامة وحيد الدهر صدر الشريعة. Then they'll give the name. All of that is. So first will come the نعت منعوت. So جاء الرجل الكريم, noble man. So that's نعت منعوت. Right? So al-karim is نعت. علي, which is عطف bayan, clarification. Who is this man? Ali. It's a clarification. Right? نفسه, which is emphasis. Himself. Ali himself came. Right? صديقك, which is your friend, right? Which is badal. And وأخوه, and his brother, which is عطف نسق, regular عطف. Right? Just including him. So the nobleman, Ali himself, your friend, and his brother came. Who thought of that? عليهم رضوان الله تعالى. So we'll stop there, inshallah. Any questions?
Was عطف البيان and بدل.
عطف البيان and بدل.
So like if I were to say جاء الشيخ فرازو, so that could be both, right? So
الشيخ. Oh, yeah. So عطف بيان, right? If you look at the example, Abu Hafs Umaru, right? Abu Hafs by itself could be anybody who is the father of Hafs. Right? If I said Abu al-Hasan, you know how many scholars there are in Islam named Abu al-Hasan? Right? Abu Hasan al-Sharidi, Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. So it's not enough of a clarification. So you need clarification. Which Abu al-Hasan? Ali. Right? Sorry, which Abu Hafs? Umar. Right? Oh, Ali could be Abu al-Hasan, right? Ali, right? His son is Hasan and Hussein. So I said Abu al-Hasan. It could be Ali. It could be Imam Shadri. It could be Imam al-Ash'ari. Right? So the Ali part at the end clarifies which of those three it would be. Whereas the Badal, right, is a direct alternative. It is that person. There's no doubt, right? So Hadara Aliyun, Ali came, your brother. Ali, your brother, came. So unless you have two brothers named Ali, right, then there wouldn't be Badal. So if you were to take out Ali, Hadara Akhuka, your brother came. It means the same thing. If you were to say Ali came, it would mean the same thing.
well, if someone has like two brothers, right? Hadra Akhuhu Ali. Or yeah. So in that case, would it be?
Yeah, so Hadara Akhuka,
Yeah, Akhu.
Aliyun, that would be the first type. Atf al-Bayan. Right?
So-
Your brother came, and he has multiple brothers. To clarify that, you would say Ali.
But if he has one brother,
Then it would just be Ta'keed, I guess. Ta'keed. No, but if you say Hadara Aliyun Akhuka, then it's Badal. Hadara Akhuka, you have multiple ones. Aliyun, that would be Atf al-Bayan. So, any other question? وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. أن القرآن أنا لك هذا
إن لك يعني
كثير إن
إذا جاءت ذكر
إذا جاء والذين اهتدوا